So now I'm going to show you how to attach your hem facing. When we sewed on the front jacket facing, lapel facing, we left this bottom part open, okay? Because what we're going to do is we're going to sew our hem facing on first. So here's our hem facing, okay? Alright, so we have, remember here, set that aside for a second. Our hem facing, what's going to happen here is this is our front seam, okay? Here's our hem, and this is center back. So what happens is this stitch right beside together, we stitch that to our facing, like so, and then we'll just stitch across, okay? And that will finish off the inside of our jacket, the hem of it. Okay, so let's do this first. The first thing we're going to do actually is I'm going to sew my center back, right sides together. Then I'm also going to, once I've done that, because this is cut on true grain, lengthwise grain, I'm not worried about stretching, but I am going to stay stitch the top of it at 1/2 inch, just so I know where my seam allowance is. Okay, because that side will be exposed. When you're creating your jacket, you're going to want to overlock that side or something. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and stitch. Alright, I'm at my sewing machine. I'm going to go ahead and stitch center back at 1/2 inch. Okay. Now typically I would say go ahead and press the seam open first before we stay stitch, but I don't think it should be an issue, so I'm just going to quickly stay stitch it. We want to make sure that that seam is open when we stay stitch over it though. Alright. I'm quickly just going to press that seam open. That's my center back seam. There we go. And now we can go ahead and attach it to the jacket. Okay, so here's the inside of my jacket. When this is finished, it will be like this. Right? Again, if you're not sure how to stitch something, lay it out first. Okay? So I know that my right sides need to go together, so this side will be stitching like this. Right sides together. To my lapel facing. And then same thing on the other side. Right sides together. Make sure not to twist this or anything as you do this, because you'll have to unstitch it and put it back together if you get a twist in it. Okay, so let's go ahead and stitch these two parts together. Okay, so here we go. Stitch just at 1/2 inch. And same thing on this side. Stitch that at 1/2 inch. Okay. That's what we have so far. Now we need to go ahead and stitch them at the hem. So we're going to put right sides together. So this is going to flip around like this. I'm going to join it center back and center back. Center back of my facings to the center back of my jacket. And now we're going to flip this inside out. Okay? Alright, so my facing is now right sides together. I'm going to fold these corners back. Okay, so I'm taking the seam allowance now and I'm folding it back over itself. Alright, one on each side. Okay, that's where my jacket and lapel came together. You should have a notch here. There's a notch right there. That lines up with my side seam. There we go. And there shouldn't be any ease in that. It doesn't look like it. It's perfect. Same thing on the other side. Flip your facing in, or inside out, so that right sides are together. The seam allowance of that, open up and bring down, so you have one seam allowance on each side. Pin that. Attach there. And then find your notch at side seam of your facing. Make sure it's lined up with the side seam of your jacket. Looks like it is. And there we go. So now we're ready to go ahead and stitch across this. Alright, so let's go ahead and stitch this. 1/2 inch, back tack beginning end. Okay, now we've stitched it. Okay, let's go to our corners. First thing we're going to do is cut out the seam allowance that's caught in that corner. Eliminate some bulk. And then we're going to cut diagonally across like so. And same thing on this corner. Trim out that seam allowance, just the seam allowance. And then diagonally across. Alright, flip it to the inside. Push the corner out gently with your point turner. And same thing on this side. And now, let's press these seams open, which we should have done before we actually flipped this in, so I'll flip it right back out. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. Now that we've pressed it open, we can flip it right back, right side out. And give those corners another push. Make sure they're out nice and good. And now, let's bring this here, press that seam open. And just you want to get about a 1/16 of an inch of the fashion fabric to the back. And you press this. Okay, and there it is. There's our hem facing, which finishes the edge of our jacket. Now, these jackets are going to be unlined. You'll just overlock the edge here and around, okay? Or do some kind of Hong Kong finish or bias binding. But if we were lining it, the lining would come down and then back up and attach here, and you'd see a little less of this. All right? I'm just going to put a pin in at my center back to hold that in place. And that side seam. Okay. Now let's attach the sleeves. Let me just close this real quick so you can see, get an idea of what this is looking like. There's my roll line. And the same thing on this side. We'll put this back on the form later. Okay. So yes, it's a little bunchy and stuff, but once you put it on a body or a form, it won't be like that because we'll be forming to it. But here you get an idea. Line up my center fronts, line up my waistline. It's rolling right on my roll line. Okay, so it's coming together. Alright, so here is the muslin of the jacket sewn together on the dress form. Okay, you can see all the balance lines on it. Get a closer shot. Alright, you know what it looks like when it has the lapel facings and upper collar and one of the sleeves attached. It also has the hem facing on. So if we open this up, you can see there's the hem facing down there, which goes all the way around, and then the lapel facing, which comes up. Okay, and we'll go over here, get a closer look at it. So there is the collar where it attaches to the lapel, the notch, and then the back. And you can see the facing probably through the back neck facing through the jacket. Important to remember that there is no interfacing in this muslin. Okay, so just remember that, and that you will have interfacing in your final garment. Okay, but when you're making the muslin, you don't need to put the interfacing in. All right, so there it is.